I'd like to introduce our host and psychotherapist for their series, I Am Not Okay, Kim Christing. Kim is the founder and executive director of Bay Ridge Counseling Centers and Human Strong, which is part of the Bay Ridge Circle of Care. He is an author and creator of several mental health programs in the area of mood disorder and anger management. For several years, Kim hosted a call-in national talk show called Nightlight and has appeared on numerous national talk shows speaking to the issues of mental health and relationships. Over his 40-year career, Kim has intimately worked with thousands of individuals, couples, and families to help navigate the challenges of mental, emotional, and relational health. Please welcome Kim Christing.
Thank you so much, Amy. We want to welcome our two guests for today, Dave Hutchison. Dave is a retired former professional ice hockey defenseman who played for the Philadelphia Blazers and the Vancouver Blazers of the World Hockey Association, plus the Los Angeles Kings, the Toronto Maple Leafs, Chicago Blackhawks, and New Jersey Devils of the NHL. He was noted for his aggressive, hard-nosed defensive play more than his offensive prowess. He often played in a defensive tandem with defensemen such as Dory Salming and Doug Wilson. He was chosen 36 overall by the Los Angeles Kings in this 1972 NHL amateur draft, but chose to play for the Philadelphia Blazers and the Vancouver Blazers of the World Hockey Association for 2 seasons. In 1974, Hutchison finally joined the Kings and began a 10-year career almost exclusively in the NHL. He retired in 1984. Our second guest is Joe Tilley. Joe Tilley is the retired sports anchor for CTV News Toronto. Joe had a successful career as an amateur boxer, Golden Gloves champion, 3-time Alberta welterweight champion, and bronze medal champion at the 1978 Canadian Championships. Since signing on as the 11:30 p.m. sports anchor in 1984, Joe has developed a dedicated audience and viewership that is attributable to his enthusiastic and energetic on-air style. He was well known for his program features that include Swiss Picks and the Excellent Sports Adventure. Joe now hosts an online show called Joe Tilley's Great Canadian Sports Show. Welcome, Joe and Dave, to I'm Not Okay, looking at the tough exterior of men and men in sports. Lasting 60 minutes in a fast-moving, hard-hitting NHL game is tough enough, but to grind out over 10 years, that takes another level of toughness. To last one round in a ring with a high-level boxer is difficult, but to be a Golden Glove champion, you better be able to take a punch and deliver the haymaker. Our guests have had an athletic career in professional sports in roles of being a tough guy. Tough guys in a harsh, demanding sporting world. How did they handle the pressure, the taxing testing, the unbending competition, the hard-headed determination to be able to face the next new young tough guy trying to knock you off your block? Gentlemen, I'm so delighted that you are joining us today, and I would like to talk with you about this whole aspect of men, toughness, the exterior aspect of toughness, and what that means to our inner world and our emotional and mental health in terms of that. So let me just begin. Did you guys see yourself as a tough guy?
Not when I was a child growing up and playing hockey. I just wanted to play. But then the game, pardon me, evolved into a tougher game. And I realized if I was going to pursue the career that I wanted, I was going to have to adapt to that style, and it was going to make me more effective. And when I say that, I mean when the other team knew that you were a little dangerous, if you will, out there, they would give you more room. In other words, the puck went back into my corner, I'd have a little bit more room to go get it because the guy wasn't right on my tail like they would be on, say, maybe a guy that they knew wasn't as aggressive as I was.
So that gave you some space, and you realized that you got a little bit of respect, and that created some space for you to do better in your whatever you were trying to do with the puck. Interesting.
Yeah, that and the fact that my coaching, I had a coach, Bob Pulford. You may remember him. He was a long time Toronto Maple Leaf.
Yep.
He taught me how to play defense. And one of the things that really stuck with me was that I was only allowed to handle the puck for 1 second. 1 second. So that meant that I had to know where I was going to go with that puck before it even got to me. So my eyes were like wide open, waiting for the pass, but already knowing when I was going to get it, it had to be going up there to the left winger, to the centerman, or wherever. I had 1 second to handle the puck, or I was on the bench.
Wow. So was being tough then a conscious decision?
Well, you knew what I was out there for. I knew, and it's not the easiest position to play. That you're going to have to probably tangle with their tough guy on their team or whatever. And that's what it was back then. It wasn't tough guys picking on their star players or weaker players. It was always tough guys battling with their other tough guys.
Okay. And were you a tough guy, Joe?
Well, I wouldn't say that. My deal was that, I for a few different reasons, I always thought that I could be a successful boxer, and I regretted that I hadn't pursued it at an earlier age. So when I reached a point where I was, 18, turning 19, and I was in a pretty bad way. I was basically a teenage alcoholic. And I drank, and I partied, and I dropped out of school, and I was, and all I wanted to do was party, and for a while that seemed fine. It seemed like I could maybe do that. I could maybe function, but after a while, I became depressed. I became, really messed up, and I turned to boxing as basically I looked at boxing as the last door on the last house on the last street, right? This is an option for me to turn my life around, because there was nothing else I could imagine I could do. I mean, at this point in my life, you're talking about somebody who probably had half a grade 10 education. I was, I tried a variety of different jobs, but the only thing that mattered to me was partying. And so when I got into boxing, it was like, this was my way out. This was made for me to change everything about my life. And I grabbed on with both hands, and I went right after it. And what happened to me is in knowing what I know today, I changed my addiction from drinking to training. And I would get up, and unfortunately I had a situation. My parents, as the youngest 5 children, they're the only one left at home, and my parents were lenient and let me, kind of have that freedom to live there for nothing, And so I would go in the mornings, and I would, work out. I'd go to the gym and work out in the afternoon, come back home and maybe do some road work, then go back to the gym at night and spar and, get, training from the coaches there at the Native Friendship Center in Edmonton. It's called the Native Boys Boxing Club. And I took it seriously, because it was like an option for me, a way to change my life, a way to do something with my life, because I felt like I was a loser. I was washed up. My life was a disaster, and this was my way out. So rather than look at myself as a tough guy per se, I felt like I had fast hands, and I wasn't afraid to get hit, and I that was, I guess, the assets that I had, and I was determined.
Yeah. So we all know how good it is for young men and women to be in sports for all kinds of reasons, from self-discipline, for some sense of resilience, for being able to accomplish, for rituals and routines that we can be able to feel good about ourselves. There's a lot of benefits for sports, etc. And so that was really helpful for you, I'm hearing. And you both said you could probably deliver a punch and take a punch physically. Was there ever a time, though, that you couldn't take an emotional punch? Have you ever experienced losses in your life that really threw you for a loop?
I think we all have. You know, my father passed when I was 17, playing junior hockey. That was very hard.
Can you talk about that? You were 17. You were playing hockey. Did he love hockey?
Oh yeah. He was my influence to get me into hockey, and he was the one who drove me to all my games and practices. And then I was just getting into junior hockey, and he passed of a one-time heart attack. He was only 51.
Wow.
And what it did, though, is it really motivated me at that point in time, because I knew that his wish was for me to make it as a hockey player. And
really?
That was when he passed. That was the driving force. That was like the fork that got into my arse to get me really motivated and going. And I really kind of dedicated it to him. And
really?
All of a sudden, things started taking. I was getting better. The game back that time. Remember back in the early 70s. You know, the Big Bad Bruins, the Broad Street Bullies of Philadelphia. They were winning the cups, and teams were looking for guys. So I realized that. My coach told me, he says, start hitting, and if you like to, I like to scrap. It's a little bit strange, I guess, but growing up as a child, and that I like to do it. I used to box too, Joe, and once that kind of game came into play for me, that's when I started getting better. I was getting more ice time. And like I said, I was getting more room out there. So it made my job a little bit easier, although it never is out there. But, they also put me with some pretty good defensemen that I tried to protect, if you will. And whenever, the puck come to me, I just move it over to Borja Salming or, Doug Wilson, Gary Sargent, these guys that were offensive players, and, let them roll with it.
Wow.
That's why they became Hall of Famers, Dave, because of you, my friend.
There you go. There you go.
Nice. Thank you.
Well, and I find that interesting, that motivation, that pitchfork, as it were, and that sometimes losses really affect us and move us internally to do things that we might not have been able to do without that. And you also, were you not a close friend of Bob Probert as well?
Yeah, but I never played with Bob as a hockey player. He was 15 years younger than I was. But we met playing alumni hockey. Bob couldn't get over the border. So he lived in Windsor. I live in London area. So he would pick me up, and we go play most of our games. The bulk of them were in Toronto area, whether it be Northern Toronto or Northern Ontario or Eastern. So that's how Bob and I only knew Bob for, 6 or 7 years before he passed, because he died at 45. And
wow.
So we were good friends, and, I miss him.
Do you? How did that affect his death? Affect you as well?
Well, it affected all of his friends. Bob was a wonderful person. He had a switch that would flick in a hurry when he was on the ice, but I never saw that away from the game. I never did see him get mad at anybody. He was a joy. People loved to see him. He was like that big bear that came around, and whether they were police officers that were trying to bust him, hockey, everybody loved the guy. And when we played these games, mostly we played against the cops. They were the first ones that wanted pictures with him. And also the first ones that were arresting him. It was quite a fiasco.
Loss for you, Joe.
Well,
how does that affect you?
As a lot of people know, we lost our son Spencer to a fentanyl overdose in 2014. So when it comes to loss, I mean, that's, I can't imagine it's about as bad as it gets, right? I can't imagine anything any more loss than that. And it's like, before that happened, friend George Chiavallo had lost Jesse, then George Jr., then Stevie, and then his wife, I experienced some of that with knowing George, and I've had other friends who've lost children, and it was tough, and what Spencer kind of indicated to me when he was going through treatment and then aftercare program is that he had a desire to help other people, and he had the desire perhaps to be a counselor, which is what I do today. Is I work at Addiction Rehab Toronto, and I'm a part-time counselor there, and taking people through recovery, and now what I get from that is, like, I know Spencer wanted to help other people, and I want to help other people, and I find that by trying to be helpful, finding ways to be helpful, it takes me out of myself. It gives depth and weight to that loss. Like, all of our experiences make us uniquely useful to be of service to other people. That's what I've learned, right? And so when we experience loss and we're able to share that loss, we're able to help other people, other people with their loss. It has gratification, right? It's gratifying. It's good for me. I do believe, in this, this idea that nothing happens by mistake. Things happen for a reason. There's a reason why all this stuff happens. And so the reason for me being who I am and going through what I've gone through and on all that other stuff is because it puts me in a position to be uniquely useful to help other people. I believe that's what my
Can I drill down there, Joe? Sorry to interrupt, but when you said it takes me out of myself, what is
right?
What's that about yourself?
Well, myself in terms of, sometimes I'll be in a place where I'm grieving, and I'm down, and I feel. Sometimes I'll be in a place where I've got some self-pity. Sometimes I'll be in a place where I'm concerned about what other people think of me. Sometimes I'm in a place where I'm, full of self-doubt or, anything like that. And when I'm, working with another alcoholic or addict or, helping somebody else in that way, that takes me right out of myself. It puts me in a really good place. And, when I have the opportunity to be helpful, I really enjoy it. I love it. And it's kind of what makes my world go around today. And because of that, I think I'm in a really good place today, despite, what I've gone through. And I think when I stop trying to be helpful is when I'm probably going to hit, a wall that, I don't know if I can get through it, but by keeping myself, focused on what I can do, how I can be helpful, instead of thinking about what I've lost, what I don't have. I'm in a much better place that way.
And so I'm interested in that. More and more, we're seeing professional athletes who are admitting more outwardly to that they are struggling emotionally, psychologically, from tennis players to gymnasts, etc. And in your looking back at your career, did you ever notice other athletes that were silently struggling inside, but they really did not have a voice to say that they were struggling?
I can't say that I really know any. I think hockey players on a whole, they try to be a little more macho. When when we would get a concussion back in our day, nobody ever used that word. You had your bell rung, and you got back out there. The guys today that I see, most of the guys that I play with still are strong, and I know that there are some that are struggling, but most of the guys that I know that I hang around with and so on are pretty strong.
And when you talk about the strength, so you're really, I assume, talking about an internal kind of strength and a resilience. Is that right?
Yeah, that's true. And you'll see, hockey players will play when they're injured. They're afraid to get out of the lineup, to be honest with you, in case somebody comes and takes their job. But they all play through injuries. And, that's why they have these concussion protocols out there now, because they know the player is not going to admit to having a concussion. He'll rather stay out there and play through it. And that's what we did back in our day. You can imagine how many of us had concussions. We never wore helmets. Right.
And so there is a point, Dave, very interesting point, is that the players themselves don't even know that they shouldn't be playing.
They don't know that they're hurt, and they don't want to accept that. They just want to get back out next shift. And so that's the mindset. So they don't want to accept it. No. So whenever you talked about addictions as well, we talk about this thing that's very powerful, denial. So professional sports, part of their strength to focus on being successful or the champion or winning can actually hurt you at times. Is that somewhat true? Yeah, absolutely true. Yes.
Were you ever in denial, Joe?
Oh yeah, for a long time I was in denial. I thought I thought if I really, because of the fact, I told, when I was, 19 years old, and I'm getting into boxing, and I'm not drinking, I'm focusing on training, and I'm able to put the booze away for a period of time, until I hooked up with my old buddies again and went crazy, but then I go back into training again. So I felt I had this ability to put it down for as long as I wanted, but then it got to a point where I couldn't put it down anymore. And so, I would tell myself, and I'd look at myself, you're killing yourself. Basically, your wife's kicked you out. The job is hanging by a thread. Your life is a disaster. What are you going to do? You got to quit drinking. I know I got to quit drinking. And I look at myself and I say, okay, I'm going to quit. But I couldn't make it from work to home without stopping at the bar every time. And so that was the denial that somehow, someday I'm going to muster up the ability to quit when I obviously couldn't. So, the evidence was stacked against me. So finally I had to reach out and say, you know what, I don't think I can do this. And when I was able to say, I don't think I can do this, that's when that denial started to dissolve, my show, I had Jim Thompson on the show this week, and he was talking about, that surrendering process and how important it was to come to terms that I can't do it. I just surrender.
Well, yeah. So with those, the professional athlete or those who are striving for such high demand competition and to winning, that a concept of not thinking that I can stop doing it runs contradiction to what is actually required. I mean, I deal with various people, especially from, whether it's businessmen who have became a functional alcoholic because of business luncheons they were required to do, or from police officers and firefighters who are meeting afterwards who are drinking constantly to cope with PTSD or the challenges of their job. And but for them to come to a place of, I don't think I can do this, do you think people come there without them suffering some significant loss. I mean, do you see any people saying, yeah, I need to be smart and not continue down this road because, I maybe be able to do it, but I probably shouldn't. I don't know.
Most of the people that I know that have drinking problems or drug problems are liars. They completely lie to you about, how much they're drinking or what drugs they're taking or doing. And that's the sad part. That's the real sad part. I had a real good friend of mine, Dan Maloney, another tough guy that passed away here a couple of years ago, and the booze got him. And he was away for a while. His family had put him in not an institution, but a place with locked doors, so he couldn't get out. Mm-hmm. And he was in there for a long period of time, like years. And when he finally did get out, it took him about a week before he drank himself to death. And all along that time, he promised me, because I was trying to help him, and he promised me, looked me right in the eye and lied to me. And that's the same with drug abusers. I saw it with Bob Probert, and it's an awful thing when you think you've got a really best friend, one of the guys that you really rely and trust, that lies to you. It's the booze and the drugs. I know it's not them. It's the booze and the drugs.
The disease.
Right. The disease is a liar. Yeah. And the disease will lie to me and tell me that I don't have it. The disease will lie to me and tell me that, oh yeah, you can have one. And the disease will lie and tell me that this time it's going to be different. This time you'll be able to handle it. And the disease will lie to me and tell me that I can't ever have fun in my life again without it.
Yeah.
And all those things are lies, but I believe it. I believe the liar. And so I'm going to do, say, and whatever I have to do to say to continue on, because, yeah. So that's what that liar, that disease that lives in my head. And I'm telling you, I would be leaving work and say, I'm going straight home. I am going home, and I'd pass a lie detector test. And then get on the 401, and I can't make it past the first exit on the 401. I even tried changing the lane so I get into towards the express lanes, and and then I found myself coming back to, because I just the liars tell me that there's something going on there, that the fear of missing out or whatever, and it's working overtime, and it's getting me to the bar, and it's getting me to the bar too. And the disease wants me dead or insane, and it won't stop until I'm either dead or insane. And that's what, and until I finally surrender and say, I can't do it on my own, I have to have help. I have to, be around other people who've gone through the same thing I've gone through, and they've experienced the same thing I've experienced, and they've got through the other side. They've gone through that door, because I just can't do it on my own. I keep trying. And the disease keeps telling me, yes, I can, but I can't.
But doesn't that make you feel like a weak guy rather than a tough guy?
Well, but there's a saying in recovery that it's called surrender to win. Because if you really want to win at the game of life, then you have to give up control and stop telling yourself that you can do things you can't. Stop listening to that liar and stop being a liar, like Dave said, right? It's just like, then you get in recovery. You got some messes to clean up because of all the lying you've done, right? I had a bunch of messes to clean up. So, nobody wants to admit that they have no control. Who wants to admit that? But the fact is, if you're an alcoholic of my type, you have no control. And when you give up control and surrender to that disease and accept, that I don't have control. I'm never going to have control. I need to do what I need to do in order to get sober, and then I can have a good life. But you know what? I can tell you that the life you get to have is way beyond what you've ever had before, even beyond what you can imagine. It's a great life, but it happens as a result of giving up control. And I don't want, my ego says, no, you don't want to give up control. You can do this on your own. But I can tell you, I buried a lot of guys, friends, children. I buried a lot of people who believed that they had control, who believed that they can muster control, who could gain control. And when you're an addict, an alcoholic of my type, you do not have control, and you'll never have control.
Well, but when you talk about that, Joe, and I so appreciate you being open and honest about it, to not have control. I mean, you guys, a lot more than me. I'm not a fighter by trade. Very aggressive in sports, etc. But I'm not a fighter. But you guys would go in there, take punches, give punches, and but when you are saying that to give up control, that's something you're afraid of.
Well, what's control but a 7-letter word for fear, right? And why am I trying to control? Because I'm afraid. I'm afraid that things aren't going to go my way. I'm afraid I'm going to lose what I got or not get what I want. And so I have fear, and I believe that somehow I've got to manipulate my exterior, manipulate the world to make it happen so that I can have what I want. And that's what control is all about. And when I can move from control and letting go of control and moving to, I get the Mike Pence fly in my head here. When I can let go of control and move towards acceptance, I'm in a much better place.
Because we're all afraid, aren't we?
Yeah, but the thing is what I find is like, okay, when I admit my lack of control, when I admit my fear, when I admit my failures, when I let that stuff go and accept who I am, you know what? I don't have to fear anything anymore, do I? Because, rather than you finding out what I'm all about and me being afraid of you finding out what I'm all about, I'm just going to tell you what I'm all about. Here you go. Here's me.
Yeah.
I'm an alcoholic. I have fear, and I have, control issues, and I have, deep-seated fear of abandonment, and I have, fear of you wanting to portray an image of a person that I want you to believe I am, so you won't know who I really am, because I'm afraid you know who I really am. So getting through all that, getting into all that, and understanding myself, and then saying, but you know what? Here I am. And right. You know what? I don't have to be afraid of you finding out who I am, because here I am. I'm an open book. If you like me, great. If you don't like me, great.
Articulate the fear, etc. Absolutely. Right. And Dave, when I think about your coach telling you to only have one second with the puck, and you as a young guy wanted to play hockey, to not have the puck seems to be contradiction to playing hockey. And you humbly, sounds like you were able to be humble and let go of control and say, okay, I am not that guy.
No, I listened to my coach, and he was the reason that, he gave me longevity in my career. Everybody wants to carry the puck up ice.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to go down and score a goal. I mean, that's normal. But once I realized how I was supposed to play, or how he wanted me to play, then it earned me more ice time. And, I was getting into these better situations where, the odd time the puck would come to me back at the point, and it only took a second to get that shot onto the net. So, I found out that it made me a better player.
So being able to accept who we are and who we're not, what we're afraid of, and even being aware of it, that's part of the journey of what we're talking about in many ways. And are you afraid of anything now?
Acceptance, I guess, from people. I got a wonderful wife and family, 5 grandkids. I fear for them. I'm still working. I'm, closing in on 70, but I'm still selling real estate, trying to make sure that, I felt when I retired from hockey, I played 12 seasons of pro, but I felt after I left, I always had that regret that I could have played another year or two. And so that regret still hangs with me now in my other professional career in real estate. And yeah, I could hang them up right now. I just, I want to make sure everybody in my family's cared for and happy. And that's my biggest fear.
Is that tied to the thought that you lost your dad early and now you need to make sure you take care of your family?
There's a good possibility that is, because when, my father passed, we really didn't have very much. And I was playing at home and living at home because I was playing junior for the London Knights. And I was fortunate to be able to stay with my mother. She would have been alone. And probably does way back inside there that maybe that is the real reason. But, I want to make sure that all my family are well.
And so loss really defines you somewhat.
I'd say so, because it was when I lost my father, it was really what catapulted me into really, putting my nose to the grindstone like Joe went through. It's got to come, through your head. And once it did, things started going in the right direction for me. And, and as I look back on life now, I've been fortunate and pretty lucky.
Right. And for you too, Joe, loss in many ways defines you.
So, I guess so, because, it's such a big part of me, right? It's just such a big part of me, and it's with me all the time. And so, so that, loss defines who I am in that sense. I guess what it does define who I am, but what I kind of prefer to define who I am is to be that guy who can be helpful. And I guess rather than, it's not important that other people know that so much. It's just kind of that I know that and I experience it. I guess.
What are you feeling right now?
I would say probably maybe a little bit confusion, because I'm trying to make sense of it all, and it's like I would say that there's sadness mixed with a little bit of fear mixed with some gratitude. I mean, so I got this whole kind of melting pot of emotions that I experienced today that, I think for a long time I didn't experience any emotion at all, really. I think that was what, I think when drinking, my drinking was a way for me to control my emotions, I thought, because when I drank, I didn't have to feel.
Right.
And it seemed like for me, for a long time, I didn't feel. And, it was kind of like a sad, sick situation, but I'd look at stuff around me that was like stuff that I probably should feel sad about, but didn't. Should feel happy about, but didn't. Should feel love, but didn't. I mean, just numb. And then when, once I got sober and started to, change and, I started to experience those feelings. And today I do experience those feelings and I'm okay with it. And the feelings that, feelings like self-doubt and fear and stuff like that, those fears will pop in and they will stay for a while and they'll leave. The thing is that I'm aware of that, like Dave, there's always that ongoing fear that there won't be enough, that I won't be leaving, won't be taking care of my family, and I won't be taking care of my, won't be there's that fear exists. And then I go, what are you talking about? That's ridiculous. You're going to be okay. How do we know you're going to be okay? Well, here we are, this date in September in 2021. And if I look at every day that's happened before this, and I worried when I spent time worrying, I wasted my time, because you know what? I got through it. It was okay. So I know I'm going to be okay. I know it's all going to be okay. But, still, the fear, the doubt, the insecurity will pop up. So
it's difficult for you. Thank you for the gift of vulnerability there, and both of you. And it's difficult for men often to even know they're feeling something, or to touch there, because feelings, it's a lot easier to control a fight or control a puck or be able to control a business than it is to control feelings that seems to come and go, and we don't have a lot of control over that. But, guys, whenever I think of how loss defines us, for me in my story, so I lose my sister she's age 39, 2 years almost to the date. Her husband passes away, and we're coming home from his funeral, and my wife dies in a car accident, and leaving us with 4 children. And so this concentration of loss, and loss is literally, if our lives are a vessel and it's being scooped out, and all of a sudden it seems like there's nothing left. It's something else has to be in there, and there's grief and there's sadness, etc. And I think the challenge with loss is that it is a powerful, powerful energy that can form and make us something brand new. There's a creative aspect to it that if we have the courage to be an emotional and a relational tough guy, which means that we can accept and talk about and say what we experience, we can actually become greater than we were. And certainly one of my regrets, Dave, you talked about one of your fears, your regrets is that the man I was with, my wife who passed away, was a shell of a man that I am now. And I wish I would have been that man to her. And I was even a good guy back then. But I know that grief and loss can either destroy us or make us. And it sounds like for Dave, your dad really was, and the loss of your dad propelled you.
Yeah, it was a driving force. There's no question about it. So I look back on life now, and I wish he was, would have been around to see me play junior or pro, and still think about it. But it was a big fork in the road for me, and it was something that come from my heart, but a lot of it was right there, in my brain.
What do you think your dad would say to you today?
Well, I'm sure he would be, proud of me.
What would he say?
Probably thanks, and for the hard work that I put into it after his passing. I tried to be a good son for my mother, and try to be a good husband and father for my children, and try to give them everything that I didn't get because of losing him at such a young age.
You miss him?
Oh, yeah.
What do you miss most about it?
Well, when you're 16, 17 years old, you really haven't grown into a real man yet. So I miss those times with him from, 17 to, 30 or 40, being able to converse with him and, get his ideas on things. Basically, a young man being left alone out there because it was just my mother and I. And I had my junior, teammates and players that you would rely on. But it's a big loss for me.
I think I talk to my dad more now. He's gone. And I miss being able to talk to him as an adult and missed out an awful lot of opportunities that I regret of talking about him and his young years, etc. And but I get it. You must have missed that. Maybe that's why you listen to your coaches so much.
Maybe.
Well, gentlemen, I want to thank you for your time. I appreciate being models for other men that you can. There is the ability to certainly be courageous, and we with athletics certainly honor and love our successful heroes. Certainly back whenever you guys were out there and playing hockey, Dave, I remember those days and so thought of you guys as heroes for many people. And the aspect, though, of that as life goes on, there's not just the ability to tackle the physical world, but more and more our emotional, mental world is calling us to be fighters and warriors and courageous, to be able to deal with the difficult things that happen in life. And I want to thank you for your time. I really appreciate you giving this time for this topic.
You are welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Kim.
you, guys.